Hey there everybody, today we're going to be talking some more about rational numbers. Let's go ahead and get started with our I can statement. So today I can perform rational number operations without a calculator. Okay, so looking at the warm-up, we are going to skip some of these. We're going to go down to warm-up E. And this is just a little review for integers, but it's so important we don't want to skip it. So combining, that's adding and subtracting. Combining those integers, you could say it this way, same sign, like if it's a positive plus a positive or a negative plus a negative, find the sum and give the answer the same sign. Okay, different sign. So if you have a positive and a negative that you're combining, find the difference, in other words, subtract them, and give the answer the sign of the larger one. This is the same way to say what I have been teaching using the song. In other words, same signs add and keep, different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the larger number, then you'll be exact. Okay, so there's our song again. So just a little review there. Now that was for addition. For multiplication and division, you have these signs, these rules. Basically, if you have the same sign, you're multiplying or dividing, and if you have the same sign, it's going to be positive. So this one's going to be positive because it's the same everywhere. And here, negative times negative or negative divided by negative, that is also going to be positive. And I know it's weird to see all those negative signs and think positive, but when you are multiplying or dividing and you have the same signs, it will be positive. Now, when you have different signs here or here, those are all going to be negative. So again, here are the rules for adding, here are the rules for multiplying and dividing. Okay, let's keep going and talk about those rational numbers. Hopefully you're becoming more comfortable working with fractions and decimals. Now we need to work on performing operations on rational numbers without a calculator. What are operations? Your operations are adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Those are operations. It says, what are rational numbers again? I'm not going to write it because it's kind of long, but rational numbers are any numbers that can be written as a fraction. Although you may like decimals more than fractions, if you recognize the rational numbers, whether in fraction form or decimal form, you will find that the answer is often much easier to find in fraction form. Not always, but often. Okay, so let's look at example 1. So it says, which of the following problems would you rather do? And they give you these decimals to subtract or these fractions to subtract. Now you could get out your little table that I gave you yesterday and compare and find this out for yourself, or I could just tell you. These are exactly the same thing because this decimal is equal to 7/8 and this decimal is equal to 5/8. So these are the same math problem right here. I would much rather do this one because I can just say in my head, okay, 7 minus 5 equals 2. Keep that common denominator on the bottom, which was an 8. And then I'm just going to simplify that to 1/4 and boom, I'm done. But if you were to subtract 0.875 minus 0.625, it would be the same answer. Let's see how that goes. So 5 minus 5 is 0, 7 minus 5 is 2, and 8 minus 6, 7 minus 2 is 5, and 8 minus 6 is 2. And so you get 0.250, which equals 1/4. 0.25 is the same thing as 1/4. Okay, let's look at this next one. Now you have this crazy long decimal minus this crazy long decimal, and they're repeating decimals to boot. Or would you like to do negative 1/7 minus 3/7? Like this first problem, this is the same thing as negative 1/7, and this is the same thing as 3/7. So these two problems are equivalent. They're just written differently, and this is so much easier to do. So let's see. We have same signs, so we're going to add and keep the sign. So adding 1 plus 3, that's going to equal 4 over still 7. And then we're going to keep the sign that was there, which was negative. So negative 4 over 7. And you're done, which is kind of nice. So like it says, sometimes adding or subtracting the fractions can be a lot easier than dealing with the decimals. Not always. Let's go on to example 2. Find each answer without a calculator. Although fractions are preferred, doesn't really matter that much. You may write your answer in fraction or decimal form unless the original problem was written with fractions only. This kind of thing is going to just depend on how particular your teacher is about this. I'm not super particular about it, but when the directions explicitly say write it with fractions or write it with a decimal, then make sure you do that, okay? So these next 8 examples are going to be very much like your homework. Your homework might feel kind of like a lot. That is why there is another video in this lesson. I think it's under like step 3 or step 4. I can't remember. But there's another video. And in that video, the other teacher takes you step by step through each one of the answers. So try it on your own. But if you get stuck, open up that video. Let him talk you through it. It can be tough, but it's totally doable. And that video is there for extra help. Okay, let's get started with problem A. So here, -3/10 plus 0.5. We have one fraction and one decimal. Now, we need them to be the same so that we can combine them. So there's 2 different ways we could do it. Let's start with fractions first. So -3/10 is already a fraction. And then I would say, let's see, 0.5, that's the same thing as 5/10. So look, we already have a common denominator. Isn't that so nice? And you can add that together and just get -3 plus 5. That's going to be 2/10, which simplified is going to be 1/5. Okay, so that's my answer. Now let's do it in decimal form. You don't have to do it both ways. You get to choose, but I'm going to show you both ways just so that you see it done. So this time we're going to take -3/10 and just write it as a decimal. So that's going to be -0.3. And then we're going to add 0.5. So -0.3 plus 0.5 is going to be 0.2. Okay, and so you could write it as 0.2. And if you think through it or if you check your chart, you'll see that 1/5 is the same thing as 0.2, which is said 2/10. So either one of these answers would be completely fine here. You don't even have to have both, you just either one. Let's go on to number 2. All right, so -0.11111 repeating forever minus 1/3. Okay, so it's starting with decimals, so let's start with decimals. Negative point, I'm just going to write 111, and then minus. Now 1/3, you can check your chart if you want, or maybe you have it memorized. 1/3 is going to be 33333 repeating forever. So let's combine these two. Now you have a negative, and then you have a minus. So you have the same signs, so we're actually going to add and keep. So our answer is going to be negative, but we're going to add these numbers together. So it's going to be 0.44444. In other words, -0.4 repeating. So that's our decimal answer. Let's find our fraction answer now. -0.1 repeating. So anytime you have that 1 repeating, it's just going to be that number over 9. So in other words, and look at your chart, because I don't expect you guys to have this memorized yet. Some of you may, most of you probably don't. But 0.11111 is going to be the same thing as 1 over 9. So we're going to do -1 over 9 minus 1/3. Now we just need a common denominator here before we can combine them. So let's keep the 9 on bottom. So it'll be -1/9 minus, we're going to turn that into 3 over 9. And that is going to equal, again, we have a negative minus 3, so you're going to combine those and then keep the sign. You're going to add them, I should say. So you have -4 over 9. And that would be your fraction answer right there. These two are exactly the same. Let's go on to part C. All right, you have 7/8 minus, and now we need to turn that into eighths. Give me 1 second while I grab the cheat sheet. I meant our chart here. All right, so I have the chart that I was talking about, and I'm looking for 0.625. So on here, 0.625 is written as 5/8, so that's what we're going to use. Minus 5/8. Oh, that's not bad at all. 7 minus 5 gives us 2, and so that's 2/8, which is the same thing as 1/4. Now, if we wanted to do the decimal version, let's look at our chart again. Let's look for 7/8. Okay, 7/8 is going to be 0.875. So 0.875 minus 0.625. I don't know about you, I kind of like the fraction version better, but you know, this is okay. 5 minus 5 is 0, 7 minus 2 is 5, and 8 minus 6 is 2. So we have 0.25, which as you know is the same as 1/4. Okay, let's go on to part D. So here we have -3.5 plus 1 3/5. So let's go ahead and do the fraction version first. These are mixed numbers. Let's go ahead and turn them into improper fractions. So if you remember how to do that, you're going to do 2 times -3 is -6. Actually, no, I'm saying this a confusing way. Ignore the negative for a second. Just put it out front, okay? 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So you have -7/2 plus, all right, 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8, plus 8/5. Okay, so what do we need? We need a common denominator. So it looks like the best common denominator is going to be 10. This was supposed to be a negative. It kind of shows up, sort of. So 2 times 5 is 10. 7 times 5 is 35. All right, 5 times 2 is 10. 8 times 2 is 16. 16. Try that again. Okay, and now -35 plus 16. Looks like we need to subtract those numbers because we have different signs, right? So 35 minus 10 is 25, minus 6 is 19. So -19, because I'm keeping the sign of the larger number, over 10. So that's my fraction answer. And according to the instructions, where it says, keep your answer, it says, unless the original problem was written with fractions only. So it says fractions are preferred. You may write your answer in fraction or decimal form unless the original problem was written in fractions only. So because the original problem was fractions only, they want you to keep it in fraction form. If you wanted to put this in decimal form, you could just say -3. Now what's the decimal for a half? It's 0.5, right? So just make that -3.5 and then add 1 point, that's the 1. Now what about 3/5? 3/5 is the same thing as 6/10, so you would just do 1.6. And then you could combine those together. But you're going to have to put it back in fraction form anyway, so it seems like just doing the fractions is easier there. Let's go on to some multiplication and division down here. Now, I don't know about you, but when it comes to fractions, I'd way rather multiply and divide because then I don't have to worry about common denominators. So let's see what they have for us here. 0.9 times -1/2. Okay. Let's do the decimal version first. So 0.9 times -0.5, because that's what 1/2 is. So 9 times 5 is 45. 0.45 there, and then you still have that negative out in front. So that's one of your answers. Okay, now for the other answer, we would take 9/10 and put it in fraction form, and then we would multiply times that -1/2. And for multiplying fractions, if you remember, you just go straight across with the numerators. So 9 times 1 equals 9. And 10 times 2 equals 20. And we do have that negative sign still in front. And that would be your answer, because that is already fully simplified. Okay, let's go to part F. Now we have 2/9 times -0.25. We're starting with a fraction here, so let's stick with fractions. 2/9 times, let's see, 0.25. Do you have that one memorized? That one's going to be 1/4. And it is negative, so let's put our negative on there. Okay, 2 times -1 equals -2. And 9 times 4 is 36. All right. And remember, you can put that negative sign on the top or on the bottom, but you can't put it on both. So just make sure as you're multiplying across, you don't accidentally put it on both. Now we need to simplify this fraction, and that's going to become -1/18. Now if we did that with decimals, it would be, let's see, 2/9 is 0.222 times -0.25. I don't know about you, but that's just getting kind of like way more complicated. Let's just stick with the fraction version there. Let's go on to G. All right, part G is -6/11 divided by -6/7. Okay, so 6/11, is that even on our little sheet right here? 6/11. I can't find that anywhere, so let's just stick with the fractions. So do you guys remember how to divide with fractions? I bet some of you do. It's easy, but you have to remember how to do it. Instead of dividing by that number, what you're going to do is multiply by the reciprocal, which, if you remember, means you just flip it upside down. So I'm going to put this number down, and I'm going to say multiply by, and then I'm going to flip this upside down, so it'll be -7/6. And then, once I multiply, I'll have my answer. So let's just multiply straight across the top. Negative 6 times negative 7 is positive 42. And then 11 times 6 is 66. All right, so that's our answer. We just have to simplify it now. So what goes into both of those answers? I'm thinking 6. 6 times 7 is 42. And 6 times 11 is 66. So there we go, fully simplified. That's going to be 7 over 11. And there is one more left. Let's do it. Make ourselves some space here. Negative 0.6 divided by 3/8. Okay, so let's just take that decimal and turn it into a fraction. So we're going to have negative 6/10. And that can even be simplified to negative 3/5, right? So let's do negative 3/5 times the reciprocal of this, which is going to be 8 over 3. So we just flipped it upside down. And then you're going to multiply straight across. Negative 3 times 8 is negative 24. And 5 times 3 is 15. And then when you simplify there, it looks like both of those numbers are divisible by 3. 24 divided by 3 is 8, and 15 divided by 3 is 3. And if you guys remember this cool little trick, I'm going to rewrite this problem here. Negative 3 over 5 times 8 over 3. You can actually simplify this before you even multiply it if you want to. You see the 3 and the 3 there? And that would simplify to 1 and 1. And then you can multiply across and you get 8 over 5. Well, wait a second. I got different answers here. What did I do wrong? Okay, wait. I'm dividing these by 3, right? 24 divided by 3 is 8. 15 divided by 3 is not 3. I was talking and writing at the same time. That's going to be 5. I bet you guys caught that, didn't you? I hope you did. So that is our notes for today. There is a second page of notes you weren't required to print. You don't have to do. If you printed it, I'm sorry, maybe use it for scratch paper. And then there's your assignment here. I'm asking you guys to do the odd numbers only. Odds. I feel like it's kind of a lot of problems and they take a little bit of a while and I don't want you to be overwhelmed. So let's do the odd numbers for all of these. And like I said, if you want a little extra support, check out that video. It will be posted on the assignment page as well. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching. Bye, you guys.